Housekeeping, the restrooms and water fountain is over there. So in about 1 minute, we'll get started. So if you want to find a seat, if you're looking for seats, there's still a few over on this section over here if you don't want to be way in the back. Thank you.
I'm sure that's why we're here.
All right, let's go ahead and begin. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I counted, we have over 75 people here. I'd like to thank all of our panelists who are going to be answering questions tonight on the future of the library agreement. I can see that people are very passionate about this issue, and I'm here as a neutral moderator. I'm not from Pipestone, to keep this a civil discourse. All right? And with that being said, I've put some ground rules up here. I'm going to go through them, and then I'm going to have you agree to them and see if there's anything that needs to be changed or added. I have plenty of paper, so if you need to add or delete or whatever, we can do that, all right? Okay, so if you're an audience member, I'd ask that you try to keep it to a 3-minute max, but preferably less if you have comments or questions, all right? We're here to discuss ideas and not people, so let's avoid those you statements, attacking, those kinds of things. If you're doing that, I'm going to cut you off, take the mic away, okay? Let's use respectful language. I think we can all do that as adults. When you're saying a comment or asking questions, just please state your name and where you're from. And we're also going to listen and be respectful of others' points of view, okay? And then I don't want anyone, whether it's a panelist or in the audience, dominating the discussion. This is for you. This is to discuss the things in an open way so we can just get everything out there and figure out some resolutions, or at least bring the issues up. Okay. Does anything need to change here? Added, subtracted, modified? Just remember, I'm going to go back to these if anyone's breaking the rules, all right? Okay. So, I want to give the panelists a chance here. I'm going to give them 2 minutes. Let me talk about the format. We're going to start with 2 minutes each. They'll introduce themselves and they'll say pretty much why they feel that they're on the panel. What do they bring to the panel? And any other kind of opening remarks they want to give in that first 2 minutes. After that, we had over 80 questions submitted ahead of time, but there's some clear themes within that. So I'll pick some of those questions, but I'm not going to ask too many of those before then I open it up to everyone in the public. Maybe sometimes I'll go to you, and sometimes I'll go back to questions submitted ahead of time. We'll just see how the flow goes. Okay? Sound good? Okay. Let's go ahead and make sure your mics are turned on. And then we'll start with Justin here.
I am Justin Schreier. I'm on the library board. I've been on the library board since about 2017. I'm a representative from the city of Pipestone. I also serve on the city council.
Can they stand?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm Jody Wacker. I'm the library director here at Minders Community Library. I've been the director since September of 2015. Prior to that, I was on the library board.
Okay, my name is Myron Coots. I'm the mayor of Pipestone, and kind of give a little history of this. I worked on the 1991 agreement, not the 1993 agreement. Bill Burkholder and I spent many hours up in St. Paul testifying to allow a joint library to continue. And the Pipestone Joint Library has been in existence since 1975. And the original reason for having a joint library as we have is to be able to leverage the funds of the city on the community library side and the funds of the school district on the school district side to allow for extended hours of operation and better services to you, the community members, and the academic performance of students. That was the original portion of it. So a little background, a little history. I'll turn it over to Evan.
I have my own microphone, Myron. I'm Evan Schiller, a retired pastor, and in 2007, my wife, Susie, invited me to come to a meeting of a new group that was starting in town. It was Friends of the Library. Well, I came to that, and Dave Christensen knew my name, so he asked me to become a member of the board. And after I'd been on that board for a while, then I was nominated by the city council to become a member of the library board. And then a short time after that, I was appointed as a member of the Plum Creek Library System Board of Directors. So you see, I'm always getting myself appointed for something or other. I have been appointed to the negotiating committee for the new agreement, and my hope tonight is that I'll get some guidance and some ideas to carry to that meeting so that we can have a very profitable meeting and continue the good library we've had for so many years. Thank you.
I'm Kevin Enerson. I'm superintendent of schools for Pipestone, and I've been here since 2016. A little bit about how I've gotten here and how we've gotten here. The school district, in reviewing our agreements with the public library and city, discovered that we felt that the agreements weren't being followed, specifically regarding the employees. And we brought that to the attention of the library board and to the city, and they disagreed with us. Because it is an agreement and legal document, we went back to our attorney, sought legal counsel, and said, we have a disagreement here. What are we missing? Are we not reading something right? And the attorney said, no, you are. And so we went back to the library board and said, you know, we're not reading this, or we are reading this. We feel we're reading it right, and this is our position, and we'd like to get back to this agreement and honor it. And again, disagreement from the library board and city, so we had our attorney draft a letter explaining our position, presented that to the library board and city. They prudently had their attorney look over it, came back and said they disagree. So we are then left in a position where the school district said we have three choices. We could continue on with some liability concerns and issues that the district would be held to. We could have dissolved the agreement, or we could take the agreement and go to a court and ask a judge to make a ruling. The school district decided to move forward with that to find out what the judge said. The judge ruled that the agreement had been breached, and there's a 6-year statute of limitations. And since the breach occurred in 1994, there was nothing we could do to enforce it. The judge also said that the agreement was not clear enough as to what an employee is. And so with that, that judgment was made. The school district then decided that they had a couple choices: either continue on with the agreement as is with the liability concerns, or to end the agreement and move forward to make a new agreement that we would all understand, we all would follow, and that it would be enforceable. So that's kind of where we've gotten. Haven't talked about that much because we've had our conversations with the library board and city, because that's who we have our agreements with. So glad to see you here and answer your questions and find out where we're at going in the future.
Very good. You got us started with how we got here. So I'd like to open it to the rest of the people on the panel, maybe starting right here. Do you have anything to add about how we got here tonight to this point?
I don't. I think
Okay.
everybody's covered it.
Sure. Jody?
Yes, I think that we got here because the agreement started back in May of 2015 when Mr. Enerson was here on a superintendent visit, and at that time expressed some dissatisfaction in the agreement during his tour, and then again in several meetings after that in the fall of 2016. So I think we are here because this has been a very long-term disagreement kind of underneath the surface about the community library.
And I can say from the city standpoint, when the lawsuit was brought by the school district, we defended that vigorously. And throughout my meetings with the school board and informally and formally, I defended this agreement vigorously because I believe in it. And it's the best solution for the cities, in my opinion. And so that's why on the legal case, I guess I would kind of disagree with how it's verbiage. The breach of contract, I believe, was on, the big issue was how many board members on the library board. And the state statute says you can have 5, 7, or 9. We have a number of issues in Pipestone getting volunteers to serve on these boards. And so what happened, it went back to 5. And it really was, I think it was said in the agreement it was going to be 7. But it's immaterial. It was agreed to and operated that way a number of years. And if you're a student of contract law, that when you don't speak up quick enough, it becomes part of the contract. And that's essentially what happened. And there was another small item in there. I think we were still addressed it in the 1993 agreement as District 583. And obviously the district number had changed. That hadn't been changed, hadn't been updated. So that's a couple of things that I felt that various entities were hanging their hat on.
I really have nothing to add to that at this time, thank you.
Okay. And so I think the next follow-up question someone had is what do you see as a viable option moving forward? So maybe add to that. So here's where we are. There's some disagreements. What's your ideal way of going forward? What do you see in a future agreement that would be what you want to see? We'll go ahead and start with Mr. Anderson and go the other direction instead.
The school district, when they did vote to terminate the agreement, said they would like to have a new agreement drafted. So we are slated to have negotiations with the city to put together a new agreement that is clear, everybody understands it, and we follow it, and it's enforceable.
Okay.
No question. We don't want this disagreement. That's what we're about.
Absolutely. Mr. Schiller?
From the library board's position, I am also chairman of the library board. I think you know that. We want to see the agreement be one where we continue the library as we have had the library. I feel we've had an excellent library, and I want that to continue that way. But I do want us to follow state statute, and the school board is asking us for permission for something that is against state statute, and we don't want to go that way.
We, as city council, had addressed this on a couple different occasions during work sessions. And the city council is dedicated to having a community library within the city of Pipestone. The city of Pipestone, the council likes the arrangement that we have right now because it's probably one of the premier public libraries in southwest Minnesota. And so we'd like to maintain that if possible. We also said too that before the city council would approve any agreement in the future that is drafted, we are going to require it to be sent to the Department of Education for interpretation and approval.
What I would like to see in a public library agreement is open, honesty, communication. I think that transparency needs to happen. We need to also have procedures laid out so that when disagreements or communication breaks down, that we can negotiate that as we go rather than coming to the point where we're at, because there are right now some pretty serious cracks that are caused by lack of communication. And so I think communication is the biggest thing that needs to be addressed.
The setup we have now is optimal. We're getting the best level of service we can at the cheapest rate to the taxpayers of both the district and the city, and I'd like to keep that going. And another thing that I would propose is we revisit this agreement every 5 years instead of every 30.
All right. And so this is another question for everybody. What are the pluses and minuses of having this combined library here at the school. I could start here since you kind of started addressing that already, and then go the opposite direction here.
I'm going to read the line right out of the agreement here. The City of Pipestone and the School District shall jointly finance and operate a public library for the use and benefit of the public and the school district. The parties have determined that this offers the citizens excellent library service at a reasonable cost.
The benefits that I see to a combined school and public library are our ability as library staff to have contact with people from cradle to grave in terms of literacy. We would lose that if we step away from the school. We would also, one of the fantastic things about this is our ability to collaborate with our educators and with our students. We see a lot of teachers that come in and ask us for help. We do a lot of collaborating with them. We have students in here all the time, so we would lose that. We would lose this, I don't know where you would put us up. I don't know if there's a lot of space out there, but this is a gorgeous facility and it really offers a lot to our community. We have the option to provide our community with public meeting spaces. We can have organizations utilize our spaces. We have a lot going for us. We have a very robust collection for a library our size, particularly our nonfiction. And that is a part of us being attached to the school and being an educational library rather than just a public library. We have the best of both worlds. The drawbacks, obviously, are communication. When communication breaks down, then it gets very difficult to be in a space like this. I do also feel for some of our patrons, it's fantastic to see you all out here, but we are on the edge of town and it is hard sometimes for all of our patrons to come out this way. And we are limited, so in terms of drawback, we are limited in the times that we can provide programming because we do have students and we respect the needs of our school and our students. And so sometimes we can't offer programming all the time we would want. But if you had asked me 2 years ago if we should ever divide, I would have told you absolutely not, because what we can do with continuity of literacy is fantastic.
I kind of alluded to this in a letter to the editor, and a mayor of a community is kind of a unique position. Not only do I represent the 4,300 people that are in the community and all their goals and aspirations, I also represent the students that live within the city limits of Pipestone. And so when we look at a community library, we look at it as from the standpoint of an asset. I know that when we're recruiting doctors and other professional people, we bring them out past the library, actually into the library. They are amazed that we have these facilities like this within the city, the amenities. So that's a real big asset. On the other hand, there's a lot of employers ask me for well-educated potential employees. And that's where I have a foot in the school side to make sure that academics-wise, that students achieve some level of proficiency. And so with a good library system, it reinforces the academic standards that are presented in the classroom. And so what I would like to see go forward is that we maintain this, and so we continue to grow our community academically as well as economically.
I'll put on my other hat as Plum Creek Library Services member. I think that is one of the strongest things that we have, being members of the Plum Creek Regional Library System. We are able to borrow books interlibrary, which puts 1 million books at our disposal. And we also have the technological advances that Plum Creek brings to us. We have the library services that allow us to have membership with them and allow us to use all of the technological advances that Plum Creek has. And I'm happy to see our Executive Director of Plum Creek, Elizabeth Hoffman, here with us tonight. Thank you for coming, Elizabeth.
I don't think I have any disagreements with things that we've heard here. From the school side, the things that Jody alluded to with you know, the communication. As a school, I see libraries being a very integral part of our academic and our curriculum. And the library needs to be there to support our teachers and do those things. And while teachers do come down here and do get support, it's very much teacher directed. And one of the issues we have with not having direction or supervision over the employees is where are we at with determining and making sure that things are being provided equitably. A teacher may come down here, check out books for their classroom. Is there any check on, are the other classrooms in that grade level also getting those same books, and is there some type of uniformity? I'm not saying we're perfect and that we can't do better, but I think that's what Jody's alluding to is we can be a stronger system and we can do things better, and I think that's what we need to make sure that we're doing. I do have some information that I found back from 1991 when they were bringing this information, and they did a great job of kind of laying out what a school library does and what a public library does. And while I say we can probably make it work, there are some differences, and we do need to have some oversight of that. And if anybody would like any copy of that information, I have that. It is from the 91, so the digital things probably weren't there at the time. Things are a lot different now, but I think overall the gist is very much the same. So anybody who would like that, I can provide that to them.
Thank you. Mr. Schiller, there are a couple of questions about Plum Creek and what happens if they were to separate. What would happen in Plum Creek? Does the school keep that service? Would the public have to? What would be involved in that?
No, a school library cannot be a member of Plum Creek Library System. They can negotiate an agreement with Plum Creek for some limited services, and I have a copy of that agreement here. They have to pay for those services. If they want to have training for the school media person, then they have to work out that agreement with the Plum Creek staff. And if they want to have interlibrary borrowing, they have to work out that agreement also. But a school library may not be a member of Plum Creek. Only a public library can be a member. A school, as I said, can negotiate and purchase some services from Plum Creek.
Thank you very much. Something we haven't touched on yet, we've talked a little about staffing and communications, but the most asked questions were regarding safety and security. And so I'll just pick one. What, if any, safety measures have been implemented and when? How has this been communicated to the library board, the city, and the public library staff? I'd say another one was a student asking about why they were never asked about safety because they don't feel like they've ever been unsafe there. And then there's many that ask about what was the history of safety, what's been done, and what about the wall. And I'm not from here, so I don't know what the wall means. So there are many of them that said the wall. It's not a Pink Floyd album. Well, it is, but that's what we're talking about today. So who would want to kick us out? Safety. So there's tons, and you've read the questions in advance. So if you wanted to start to address the safety issue, I think that was on a lot of people's minds.
You know, we've put in some security at this door here, and we had to put in the egresses there. There's no plan for a wall. It was our facility steering committee was asked by the building principal about this. It was looked at while we were in the early phases of our construction, but it really never went anywhere. It wasn't feasible and didn't seem to quite fit in here. I think it again goes back to supervision of staff and being able to direct staff on what's going on and what are the procedures and how is all of that handled. So I guess that's where that is at. And
Okay.
if there are other issues, I think that's where the negotiations between the school and the city will address those types of things if there's any other further issues.
Okay.
Because I think we all want this to be a safe and secure place.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? The safety issue.
Again, on the city council, we talked about this a couple different times, and I've talked to Jody about it too. And even when I met with facilities, a meeting early on, I forget when that was, but it's quite a while ago, we talked about electronics on this door. I recommended that we put electronics on the front door, and actually, we're at a point where the community library people sit, they could actually buzz people in. So if this was a safety issue, that could be implemented. I'd like to one point of clarification though. There's two sets of employees in the library. There are the community library employees, and there is the school library employee. The school library employee supervises during the school hours the school students that are in the library. The community library staff does not supervise the school employee. I want to get that real clear because there's been a lot of misnomers out here about that. And so when we talk about supervision or the lack thereof on the school side, I guess that's for the school to resolve. If there's lack of supervision on the community side, that is for the community library board, which is made up of 2 people from the school, 2 people from the city, and an independent person, which happens to be Evan, for them to discuss on personnel issues at the library.
I would like to add that to date, so on December 13th, 2021 was the first time that anything was done with this door, I'll stand up. This door is the door that we are talking about as a security issue between the school and the public library. On December 13th, 2021, so a few months ago, was the very first time that anything was done to that door, despite conversation happening since 2015. We still, to date, have never been talked to by a single school staff about how this security works or doesn't. Nobody has come to the library yet. This is the kind of communication that I'm talking about that needs to be addressed. If a secure door is put into the library, we need to know how it works, what we are supposed to do with it, when we are supposed to use it, what happens when we push that button. To date, there has been no conversation about that. That is my concern in terms of communication. That's all.
I'm not a stranger to building security any means, but I think it is very important, and we're living in a different time than we were in 1991. But it's right there, the school to supervise students, and then we have public librarians to assist the public in that end. So I think it's something we're going to iron out in our agreement.
Add one thing.
You may.
I think when you hear the mayor talk about there's 2 different staffs in here and the school says there's 1 staff, that's a part of our problem. That's our issue. I'm not going to sit here and debate it. It's where we're at. We agree to disagree or whatever, but the statutes and things, we have different points of view on how that works. So we'll need to get that straightened out for this to continue.
May I read the statute about hiring people in the library? I have it in front of me here. It says the library board shall appoint a qualified library director and other staff as necessary, establish the compensation of employees, and remove any of them for cause. With the approval of the council or board of county commissioners, the library board may purchase grounds and erect a library building thereon. That is the state statute that says that the library board is a hiring and firing authority as far as public library staff is concerned.
Okay, might as well share the school side of the statute also.
Yep,
'Cause,
let's get it out there.
right, statute 134, 195, what Myron refers to, that was what was written in 1991. And in here it says under subdivision 9, contracts, the library may contract with the school board or other entity, but they contracted with us for personnel, fiscal, and administrative services. And under subdivision 7, the powers and duties of the board, 134.11 subdivision 2 is the exception with this statute. There are only 2 schools this applies to anymore. So the statute clearly states that that is not the arrangement that's supposed to be in here.
All right. On February 11th, 2022, we received a letter from State Library Services, the Director, Tamara Lee of State Library Services with the Minnesota Department of Education. And in that she states, clearly, our office understands that Pipestone Area School Board voted on December 20th, 2021 to end its agreement with the City of Pipestone effective December 31st, 2022. As the City and School Board negotiate a new agreement, be advised Minnesota Statute 134.195 Subdivision 7 requires a city-appointed library board to retain authority over the library, even if personnel, fiscal, or administrative services is provided in contract with the school district. And then she goes on to state, if a new agreement gives Pipestone Area School Board authority over the library, then Minders Community Library would not be considered a public library under Minnesota state statute.
Great. Any more comment on this up here? Okay. I'm going to open it up. Does anyone have questions or comments at this point in the audience that I can bring the mic? Okay. 1 sec. And then just state your name, where you're from, and then go ahead and ask your question.
All right. Hi, I'm Scott DeZale from Pipestone, and I guess I'm still a little confused. Is the main problem just the staffing, or are there other issues that are also being a problem? And if so, can I get specifics of what they are and not just vague descriptions?
Thank you. Who would like to take that one?
The school district, according to the agreement, says that these are employees of the school district. We carry the liability, therefore we need to supervise the staff. So, if you don't have that supervision and things happen and we cannot correct or direct, that opens up a liability concern for the school district.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to take a step, excuse me, I'm Rosemary Lewis and I live right here in the city. So I'd like to take a step backwards just a little bit. And before it was mentioned about the purpose of a library is more open hours, resources, and staff for a public and school library. Now this agreement has 2 sides. Our public library has been active with new programs, services, and works with their community organizations. Our school library has been on the quiet side, as it has not had a full-time library teacher since 2003. Laverne and Worthington have kept their library teachers. Active school libraries are a standard in educating our students. And that's what we're really concerned about, is educating our students. The question that I have is, what is the school's plan to activate our middle high school library for our students? We need a library teacher.
Do you want to address that?
I wouldn't disagree. That's part of what we're going to be working out, and I know that the school board has talked about that exact issue that is being raised about the staffing.
Going back here.
Joan Stout from Pipestone. I guess I look up here and I see people, none of you had a vote. You are not the school board. Why don't we have either the board chair or the library representative from the school board answering the question?
Anyone have a response to that? Okay, point taken. You did have a question, right?
I'm Jan Beaver, and I'm from Pipestone. I was hired here in 2007. I was the library till almost 2019, the head librarian. And what I don't understand is there was never an issue between the school and the public library. Why all of a sudden, I get the safety issue, totally understand it, but there was never a problem with the school and the public library. And now, and maybe I'm wrong, but what I understand is when I was librarian, I had did all the paperwork for every student in this school. It was all private, public, we had nothing to do with. Now, from what I understand, and maybe I'm wrong, Jody, you can quote me, that Jody is now taking care of all the fines, everything. That is strictly confidential. That does not go to the public library. That stays in the high school. And when I was hired by our principal that time and our superintendent. And I was also told, the first thing you need to know, these are separate entities. The school is here, the public is there. And the public dealt with their thing, we dealt with our school, and there was never an issue. We used to be able to use the computer lab. I had parents that would come and ask if they had special students that needed those rooms back there for testing, whatever the case may be. This library was used very well. And I had a $9,000 budget. And this was before Jody came, the prior librarian, and I had junior high, middle school students, high school students that wanted different books in the library. So we shared my budget. I ordered my books for my younger students, and we shared our budget just to get books for the high school, the middle school, whatever the case may be. But never was there an issue. And all of a sudden, we couldn't use that room anymore. I had two paras that took a very special special ed student that they brought back here every day. The public library told us that we couldn't do that no more. We had to take that student and those two paras out of there. We had that door locked, which should have been, but I had students that would come in and say, Jan, can we practice our speech in here? I have a special student that needs to be alone. We used all this. And all of a sudden, when I decided to retire in 18, but I had 20 students in here every hour. I had 140 students every day in this library. And I've been told now that if they get 10 an hour, that's a big deal. Because no one wants to come in here anymore. And when I retired in 18, and this came from one of the library board that no longer lives in Pipestone, called me, and from 18 to like 21, they had already gone through 6 librarians in this library. So there's an issue between the two, and there should not be. And at one time, when I was, I'm sorry.
I think you're breaking the 3-minute rule.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm just telling you.
Is there a question or you just want to
No,
comment?
I just want to comment, and I'm just saying, I get the safety issue, but you need to look at the students, so. Okay. I will go
No, you're
for 3 minutes.
okay. 3-minute rule. Anyone else? Any questions, comments at this point? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Whipple. I got here a little late, so can I ask a question? What is the safety issue? I actually can ask a couple different questions just because, but that's first thing. Can you explain to us what the safety issue is?
The safety issue. This room is open to the public and anybody can walk in it from outside. And anytime you come into a school building, you need the permission of the building principal. So our issue is that in order to ensure that, the staff needs to be under the supervision of the school district. That,
So like, what are we afraid of happening? That's what I want to know.
having people in the building without checking in.
Just one second. I'll ask a follow-up to that. Is that the only safety major issue, or to resolve the safety issue, what needs to happen, even with staffing? Is it you need to be supervising staffing? And go ahead and answer it. Go ahead since
That's
you
where
started
the
it, and then I'll
negotiations
go to
between the
Jody.
city and the school will address those types of things and issues.
I would like to ask that the library staff, who are the people who are in here all day, every day, and understand what those security issues might actually be, are addressed and collaborated with, because I don't know that the school knows what the security issues are, because this door, while it can be locked, the door right beside it never can be locked. So even if you put security on this door, the door right next to it doesn't lock. And I don't know that the school board and that the school is aware of all of those things, but we understand them because we work in the library and we see things every day. And again, that's part of that communication that I think needs to happen to address all of the safety issues, not just ones that you think are there, because there are many more than that.
Do we have a question?
Yes. Oh, big crowd. Okay, well, I did submit my questions, but it sounds like we're not getting to them. To me, this doesn't seem like an issue of safety. This seems like an issue about control. My kids graduated from here. You can walk in any door in this building most days. Any door. So to me, that's a moot point. The Minders family donated $1 million or so to build this library, to have a community library. And I take this very personally because I was a child in this community who grew up on welfare. This community library was a godsend for me. I got to go to college and get my master's degree, and it comes right back to being a graduate of this school. And these librarians, Rosemary Luce and Will, Mrs. Remy, I'm insulted by how the library has been treated and the embarrassment to our community that we've had to go through. And I really hope that you can come to an agreement that is based on facts and based off of the fact that this community library has worked since the 1970s. And I would also like to know how they're going to reimburse the elderly and the disenfranchised if they have to go out of town.
Thank you. That donation was brought up many times, and many of the comments are along the lines of, does this dishonor those donations in the past? How do you go forward with donations into the future? So you want to start off on answering that or giving any kind of...
The Minders family made $1 million donation to the school district to have their name put on the building. I have, again, documentation here that shows the...
Okay, remember, be respectful.
I have documentation here that shows the purpose of the donation, and the school district is honoring it, and any other thoughts to the contrary are not true.
Okay. Anyone else on the panel? Want to address?
I have a letter from the Minders Foundation that they put in the Pipestone County Star back in, a couple of years ago.
Could you speak up a little louder?
Yes, I will, sorry. Yeah, in 1999, when the Minders agreed to contribute $1 million to the construction of the library and pay the Pipestone Jasper School District over 4 years, and this represents a failure of the school district to honor their donor intent, is how they feel.
My first question, I spoke as Chairman Wokel. I'm going to speak as Chairman Wokel, the president of Pipestone Building Materials, which is an entity in Pipestone, Minnesota. So it was up there, and you had stated that the school wants to take Jody or the school wants to be the people that do the payroll for the library. Well, my understanding is really the people that pay for the library, the people sitting here, they're taxpayers. I think there's a disconnect between our elected officials and the power they have. I don't visualize that there's a Pipestone area school. I don't visualize the city of Pipestone. I don't visualize a Pipestone County. What I see is tax-paying citizens. We pay for whatever happens here. There was a lawsuit between this Pipestone School District and the city of Pipestone. I don't know if the county was involved in that. Well, we have to pay for both sides of that lawsuit. We have to flip the bill. Now, the school board has elected officials, the city has elected officials, and if the county's involved, they have elected officials. It's your due diligence as elected official to do what's in our best interest of taxpayers. Would you guys all agree with that? And if we're not going to do that, it's time that we get rid of those elected officials by people that are going to understand that we're not, this thing was built off us going to work every day. That's how this was built. If we have to build another library, we're going to have to work to pay to build that library. That's how this works. There's nothing free in this world. There's not. So I think it's not really a question, it's more of a statement that at the end of the day, the person that pays for Jody Wacker is everybody sitting in this room. It's not Pipestone area schools, it's not the city of Pipestone.
Let me just make one thing clear. The taxpayers did not pay the legal fees of the library board. Herman Minders paid those legal fees.
I would also like to add that we also have other community members who donated to our litigation fund as well. Herman Minders just called and said he would cover the entirety of it, but we had some other big donors, so thank you for that.
I'd like to comment.
State your name.
I'm Trava Olivier from rural Pipestone, and I guess my comment is going to be addressed more directly to the school side of things. I am a citizen of the community. I utilize this library. I brought my children here as very small children for the beginner board books with no words. We continue to utilize the library as citizens. I have a strong belief in our community and looking at the people here today that should the agreement not be reached, that we'll continue to have a community library within Pipestone, perhaps not in this space. My concern comes to the school as a mother. I still have children enrolled in this school that access this library. If this agreement is not carried out, you are harming the children of this district. You are taking away the Plum Creek Library Agreement. You are taking away their access to multiple services that they can't get just from a school library. Yes, they access it as students here, but they access it after hours and on weekends because as a family, we choose to utilize our public library. So I just ask the school representatives to think about not just what they feel is liability concerns or governing concerns over the staffing. I think those things can be worked out. I ask you to think about what's best for the youth of the community and the students in this building. Thank you.
Chuck Box, right here, Pipestone. Question for Jody. When you got that $10,000 STEM grant, or $1,000 STEM grant, was that public, was that school?
So it was $25,000.
Good for you.
Yes, thank you. And that was from the public library. We actually apply for a lot of grants, and we get a lot of grants. Currently, this year in 2022 alone, we already have over $11,000 in grants this year alone for the public library. And yes, Treva, our students do get to reap the benefits of the grants that the public library creates and writes. But yes, so that everything that we do is through the public library.
Let me go ahead and ask this question because a huge number of questions go along this what if. So what if there's no agreement and it's dissolved in, was it December 2022? What happens next? I'll ask the broad question, but all the questions here get into all those specifics of resources, personnel, staff, locations, but what happens next? Whoever wants, if you want to start.
If an agreement is not reached, which I think is everybody's goal here, is to find a new agreement and agree on it, the city is committed to continuing library services for the public residents of this community. And wherever that may be, we'll have to figure that out. But then again, now you're going to have, like Jeremy said, 2 smaller libraries, and it's going to cost twice as much.
So on a very logistical part of this, the library owns about 26,000 of the books in the library, of the 32,000 in the library, and so there would be a division of the materials in here, and the public library would take the things to their new location, wherever that may be, hopefully big enough that we could fit all of our stuff in there and continue our STEM room. All of that was purchased with money minus a 3D printer that has been purchased by the school, but otherwise everything in our makerspace belongs to the library. And so the 1993 agreement actually states that everything prior to September 15th, 1991 belongs to the school district, regardless of who purchased that. And everything after September 16th, 1991 will be divided by who purchased it. So all of the materials purchased by donations and grants to the public library and funding from the city, the county, and we do get $17,000 from the community ed, from the school. So the money that goes into and supports the community library budget, that everything purchased with that would go with the public library, and everything purchased with school funds would stay with the school.
I'll just very quickly going to follow up what Justin said, that we're committed to have a community library within the city of Pipestone. On the flip side of it is, this is a 10,000 square foot facility. If we were to go out and find 10,000 square feet, which there isn't many 10,000 square foot available, the anticipation cost to the community would be roughly $400,000 plus.
I just want to say something that'll surprise you. I don't disagree with Kevin all the time. He and I are friends. We disagree on the golf course, otherwise and there is language in the old agreement that is a little ambiguous and needs some clarification. I've agreed with him on that. He and I have talked about that. And my goal is that we will come up with a new agreement, and we will be here, and we will have the same fine library that we've always had. That will be my goal. I'm a German Lutheran pastor. Wir bleiben beim Alten. We stick with the way it is.
If you have something to add, if not.
I think we covered it.
Okay.
I think both parties are looking to get the agreement hashed out.
Okay. Comments again? Yes. Some questions?
Hi, I'm Sue Townsend, and I live in town here. I'm a former child, and I love coming to this library. I get the help from whether they work for the school. I'm saying that's only my opinion, or if they're library staff. The programs, the things that come in, the authors, the people, that I have library friends that I don't see any other place. And this is just a beautiful organization. We have to work it out so that we can agree, maybe not disagree, or maybe not everybody thinks it's a good idea, but somehow, whatever, I can't say the word, but cooperate. This is my favorite place to come. I don't go to the bar.
We'll have Have them put a coffee bar in for you. Other questions, comments? Yes, sir, in the back.
My name's Tim Albrecht, I'm from here in Pipestone. I'm still having a tough time wrapping my head around the liability issue. I know if the library board hires the librarian and those people, wouldn't they be liable? Obviously, the school sued the library board, so there's an entity there that you feel is in charge of the library at this time. So why would the school be liable? And I don't understand where you get the idea that the school would be liable versus whoever's running the library, whoever hired those people.
The agreement says that they will be school district employees. We carry the liability insurance. Part of that is the supervision of staff. We'll sit here and spin around on this. That's the liability.
But they're not they're not school
Does
employees.
the library board carry insurance? This is
You
the
sued
administrative.
the library board,
Let's
so
not,
obviously,
hey, just a sec, let's not argue back and forth, okay?
but isn't the library board?
You can address it to me.
Okay, is the library board an entity that can be held responsible and sued for the actions of their employees?
The library
I mean,
board?
they were sued by the school to dissolve the agreement, so they must have some standing in the eye of the court or even in the eye of the school board.
Okay.
They're a group that's appointed by the city and the school. It's a library between the two entities that governs the library. But their duties are not one to be, in our opinion, supervisory of staff.
So would the library board then hold any responsibility, or I mean, most boards that
We have
I've
someone
served
from the
on, there's
library
some
board
type
here.
of insurance or coverage for the directors of that.
Justin, or Jody, or Evan, or any of you. Anyone else have an answer to that one?
I think you're kind of getting to the point. If there is an incident and it's sued, who's essentially insurance policy is going to take care of it? Okay, if you're a good attorney, and I think you're related to a good one, I'm not sure. In that, in a civil case, which this would be a civil case, a good attorney will sue or bring everybody into the lawsuit that has any type of deep pockets whatsoever. So in this particular case, if there was an incident in the school, and depending on who was on the premises, the school would be named, the county sheriff's department would be named, the city would be named, and if XU was here, they would be named. Once that has all happened and it goes to court, before the trial actually starts, if there's going to be a trial, it's up to each individual entity to explain to the judge whether there should be included or not. And so when it comes down to this liability thing, it's to me, it's a smokescreen. Because that's how the real world works.
Question back there, Jason.
Okay.
Jerry Rockford from Pipestone. Just a point of clarification, and I asked Jody this a while back. I asked her where her W-2 was coming from, and she said it came from the school district. So a point of clarification, if one of the employees is hurt, it's under the school district's work comp. There is that's part of the provision of the law in the state of Minnesota, direction and control as far as work comp is concerned. Now that's not getting into the contract at all, but I just want to clarify that part of the insurance is on the school. So if anybody is thinking about that, who's in charge of that part of it, the school district is.
Any other questions, comments? I guess because it keeps coming up, it seems like the staffing agreement is the big thing to hash out, right? Is that an accurate assessment? What needs to happen with that? What would you think, right now I know that this is gonna be part of what you're doing going forward, but as of today, your ideal agreement from each party that has an opinion on this, what would that look like? Anyone want to start? And it's not an easy one.
No, and my answer is that what it looks like is exactly what Jeremy Whipple was talking about, is that our community discusses what they want, what they need with all their elected officials, whether it is city or school, so that when those individuals come to the negotiating table, they can bring facts, not speculation, not suppositions, not other things, but they can actually research, they can ask the questions that they need to ask based on what our community has asked of them, and they can bring that to the negotiation table, at which time, whatever way our community presents and whatever way our negotiations committee deems after they come informed to the table is something that I want. And that's something that I would abide by is an honest, open, transparent conversation full of facts with the negotiation committee based on our community's input.
Go ahead, Evan, I think you're going to talk about that.
I'm going to read from the statutes of the city of Pipestone, the powers and duties. It says, A, the public library shall have all the powers and duties specified by the terms of Minnesota statute 134.11 subdivision 2, as may be amended from time to time. That's the Minnesota statute that I read to you, that gives the authority to hire and fire and set compensation for library staff, public library staff. That's the Minnesota statute, and the city code agrees with that. So that's what we've been operating under.
I already gave an answer earlier. We have a different statute that we just don't do.
Well, let me ask a clarifying question for me then. Do you need to supervise all staff, or it would be you could still have some that are public staff, some that are supervised by you, or is the school position that you need all staff supervised by the school ultimately, or where's your stance, and is there any wiggle room on that stance?
I'll have to refer that to negotiations.
Okay.
Where that's at.
I was just asking because that seems to be where the sticking point is here.
So I will speak to Jan Beaver, since Jan was here in 2019, I think is when you retired. There have been numerous school staff in here, and currently there isn't one on the school side in the library functioning in any capacity with library services. And so I think I will agree, respectfully disagree with you, Kevin, that there is only one state statute, and that was outlined by the Minnesota Department of Education.
And we did get in contact with the Comfrey Library, which is the other school community library that's together. The public library staff at the Comfrey system said they have absolutely nothing to do with the school. Basically, they operate the public side of it. The school operates the school side of it.
All right, questions, comments? We're dominating the conversation.
Know when to shut. Okay, Jody, am I misunderstanding? Do you not have a staff in here now?
The public library or the school?
The school?
No, there is not all school staff in the
So,
public library,
okay,
or
so
the
my-
school library.
Okay, so my question is, how come that you got to take over the school and take over things that are private? Like I was telling you, the kids' schoolwork, or not schoolwork, I'm sorry, the paperwork, the children's fines, things like that, which are very confidential. And I don't understand how come, Kevin, maybe you can tell me, why did you discontinue a school librarian?
I believe the school librarian was reduced back in 2003, or somewhere
2000 what?
3.
Well, I was here for 11 years.
She is the school librarian.
That's a librarian. Weren't you a library para?
No, I was a full-time librarian. I
Right.
did nothing but library for 11 years.
We still have
I
people
was
in
considered-
here, library paras in here.
I was considered, the librarian in the school category is considered a para. But I strictly did library. I did no para work, other than just the strictly library. And that was 11 and a half years.
We're looking at the school librarian side of having a staff member there.
You are looking at one.
Yeah, we are considering.
So, excuse me, so no students come down here then?
We have students down here all the time. There is just no school staff that has any library duties in terms of library work at all in the school. And it was not an honor that we got to take over all of the duties. It was out of the fact that after you left, the next person who came in was here for 3 months, and then the next person was a 3-month a long-term sub, and then the next person lasted a little bit, and then the next person lasted a little bit, and so we have just, has not been any school staff in the library that has fully trained and efficiently learned how to provide services, and that all of those duties have fallen to us. And so it was not an honor that we got to pick up all of those duties. It was out of necessity so that the students of Pipestone area schools and the educators would continue to get service, not just coming down in classes, but also helping them with curriculum and other things that we have done. I have a list of things that anybody can look at as well, things that we have done, but it is fallen to us to help maintain education in the library for Pipestone's students.
As a quick point of clarification, is that position open and being advertised at this point, or is, okay. All right. Is there anyone?
Did he say yes or no?
Yes.
The
Yes.
school is advertising?
2 weeks ago, the school was advertising. I don't know if it's still in the paper.
Okay. I'll give you a chance if is there anyone else that hasn't asked a question yet that wants to say something? Okay, go ahead.
Since we currently don't have any school librarian, how would it be beneficial to have the school in charge of full staffing the library?
All right.
I was first.
I'm getting the same contenders here. Anyone else want to? Okay.
If we don't come to an agreement and the public library gets evicted, come into December, Merry Christmas to the people of Pipestone, what's the plans for this 10,000 square foot space?
Yep.
There's got to be talk.
It'll be a school library.
With no books then, right? Or
With
6,000 books or
8,000,
whatever?
6,000, whatever the number was.
It will be a transition period, but if not, it'll be a library.
So there's not going to be office space here like in 2023, 2024? Man, yes or no?
No plans have been made.
Okay. Other questions?
I know you think I'm dominating, but I'm actually going to speak as the president of PDM Land Management.
Okay.
I different
I didn't even put your
I don't have to. So I know that there was a lawsuit between Pipestone area schools and the library board, and that decision was in the favor of the library board. So if the decision, a legal challenge was put to the library board, and the library board withstood the legal challenge, why are we even having this meeting? So obviously a judge from the state of Minnesota has said that the school board is in the right and not the school district.
Right.
The library board's in the right and not the school district, right? That's the first thing. And then the other thing is, when they talk about liability, the school district is liable. Well, let's be honest, the people that are liable for anything that happens at the school is the taxpayers of the school district. When they talk about liability, it's us. And whether the school is in charge of Jody, or the city's in charge of Jody, or the county's in charge of Jody, and something happens in this library, we're the ones that pay for it. You can say the school district, you can say the city, you can say the county, but I'm gonna tell you who pays for it, they're called taxpayers. No matter what the other entity name is, that's who gets to pay for whatever happens here.
The judge said that the ruling said that the statute of limitations was 6 years to enforce the agreement. So since it's not enforceable, we have to have an agreement that we all understand, we all agree to, and we will have it be enforceable.
Okay. Other questions? We're getting close to 8 o'clock, so I'm going to get close to giving everyone a chance on the panel to have a couple minutes of closing remarks. So if there's anything that's burning inside that you've just really been holding on to, and you're like, oh, I got 10 minutes yet, well, your time's almost out. So if it's time to be brave or you're going to go home, I don't want anyone, no regrets tonight, okay?
My name is Tom Steffes. I'm from Pipestone, Minnesota. And I've heard the school talk a lot about they want a fair agreement. And right now, the composition of the library board, 50% of it's controlled by the school, 50% is controlled by the city. The city, I'm assuming, pays for approximately 50% of what happens here between in-kind and cash. Jody's nodding her head, probably more. So it seems fair to me that the city should have at least 50% control of the library board and what happens in here, because I'm pretty sure they pay for the library staff, while the school contributes in many other ways. But if that's not a fair agreement to the school, my suggestion would be to put a lock on that door, and then also maybe give the public library staff to the city. They can be on the city's workers' comp, and they can get their W-2s from the city. And that might be a amenable solution for everybody and save everybody a bunch of money. And then another question I have is, in 2019, voters passed two question referendum. And the second question was about $930,000 for safety and security at the school. In the pamphlet that I was given, they identified two issues that were primary concern, and the utmost concern was the entrance, and that appears to have gotten fixed, I believe. And the other is the library. And the main concern was students getting into the library. And it doesn't seem like that has really been addressed. So I'm kind of wondering where the $930,000 went in 2019, because if the $930,000, there had to be a little bit of money in there somewhere to address the second biggest issue that was sold to the public. And I noticed when I voted the referendum, so I voted no on that question, because the wording only talked about, security, and it never really named anything specific what was going to be done. So I voted yes on the first and no on the second. So I'm just wondering what happened to that money, and then also if the city can be given the control of the staff and then be on their workers' comp. And if there's any problems with safety of the library staff, it could probably be agreed upon, to maybe to have similar agreements, whatever you have with the teachers on background checks or whatever you do to keep the teachers, make sure they're safe. We can probably work on an agreement with the city to keep the public library staff, at least meet those same standards of, background checks, things like that.
The second question on the bond was for safety and security. We did a major renovation of the high school office with a new entrance and had to restructure a lot of that. We did put in this door, and we had to put in 2 egress doors because of having the locking capabilities on this. And then also the other safety and security enhancements would have been our security cameras and entrances at the elementary school throughout. So it was a total package of where we spent all those dollars. And I'm pretty sure we spent more than that on safety and security in this whole building, on the whole campus.
Jody, you want to address that? And then they asked about the percentage of financing.
Yep, that's what I'm actually going for. So the city pays $116,000 plus a little change to our revenue. The county has increased, and the county now pays about $34,000 to our public library every year. And the school pays $17,000 through Community Ed for support of the school. In-kind services that are provided by the school include utilities, things such as snow removal and custodial, that kind of thing. And that averages about $57,000 to about $68,000, depending on how much snow obviously falls or how fast the grass grows, and what those services look like. And then, like Jan Beaver alluded to or stated earlier, was that they also provide for their school staff, their school employee in the library, as well as a budget of library materials of about $9,000.
We have time for about 2 more questions, and we're going to go to closing remarks. So I'll get to you.
I have a real quick question.
Okay, 1 and 2.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, here, and then there's one over here.
Can a joint powers agreement be signed between the library board and the city and the school district?
Could be signed.
That is with Plum Creek.
You know that the original agreement in '75 was a joint powers agreement. The latest agreements, I'm not sure.
That would remove the liability, is what I'm saying.
Oh, liability, yeah, let me address that. If there's a point of contention, and I know this came up in a meeting, Kevin had said that, I think you're running 2 different payrolls, and I see Kennedy's back here someplace, because the community library staff is not unionized, so it's a different pay scale. So the city would be more willing to take that over. And as far as a liability standpoint, all we have to do is name the location on our liability policy with the League of Minnesota Cities, and that takes care of the city's portion of it.
I'm Kim Van Hookey, and I'm from rural Pipestone here. I just wanted to add from what Tom Steppes had said, I'm part of the library staff here also. So I know he mentioned something about being vetted or background checks like the teachers. I, for one, have been, when I was hired, I did have a background check. I'm not sure of the other staff members. I think they all have, okay, yes. So I just wanted to say that we have had background checks, so that's all I wanted to add.
Okay.
I think Jody wants to answer it.
Yeah, and for clarification, I actually was school library staff, or school staff for about 8 years because I was a speech coach. So I have had background checks with the school and was a school employee. So there is a little bit of that.
Did I see a hand for the last one? This is going to be the last one, I think. All right, go ahead. And then we'll do closing remarks.
It's a quick one. Taher, the food service company, is an independent contractor, and the school does not have complete control over the Taylor staff or Taher. You know, it's an agreement, and it seems like it's a precedent that a similar agreement could be agreed upon with the city of Pipestone, or like Jerry's idea of the joint powers agreement. So it seems like it is possible, and as a taxpayer of both entities, I'd love to see something like that worked out.
All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to give each person about 2 minutes to do the closing remarks, anything, last things that you want to have said. But I'd also like you to address what are the next steps for you and for the people in this room if they want to stay engaged and have that communication channels. What does everyone do here to be a part of this conversation going forward as well? So I'll go ahead and start with you, Justin.
I want to thank everybody for coming out here tonight, and it was good to hear comments and know what the public is thinking, and you can get a hold of me anytime you need to and let me know. And our negotiations committee here is going to get together this week and start hammering this thing out for the benefit of all you guys.
Well, that's hard to follow, Justin. I also would like to thank you for coming out tonight. Whichever side that you want, if you want us to remain in the school library or the school campus, if you would like us to move out, whether we are school staff or not school staff, wherever you fall in this, all I ask is that you ask questions and that you search for the answers and that you vote with your heart. You talk to your elected officials. You talk with the people who can help shape the future of library services in Pipestone. And I will always be here to answer any questions that anybody has.
Well, I'm with Justin. I really want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We kind of jokingly say up at the city council, we got to have a public hearing now and then and charge people a lot of money for their lot improvements. That way we get people to show up for our meetings. Which is not true. But on the other hand, I really appreciate everyone coming out. Just a couple administrative announcements. Justin, Dan Delaney, and Evan Schiller are going to be representing the library board and the city side of things. A lot of people have been asking that weren't able to come tonight. I talked to Steve Moffett. We're going to upload this tomorrow onto YouTube, and so you can go to the city website and be able to find the link, and you'll be able to rewatch this or speed through it because you can go through it quicker on that. But again, thank you very much for everybody coming out, showing the interest you have. It really makes a person feel good that, you know, yeah, there's actually something happening in the community, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm going to be a little different than Justin. Stop calling me.
Can you give us your personal cell phone?
I just want you to remember what I've said. I'm a statute guy. I feel we have to let the state statutes be our guide, and we have to let that language be our guide. I agree that there's some language in the agreement that's not as clear as it should be. The state statute agreement is clear. Well, I'm going to push for that. You heard that I'm one of the members of the negotiating committee, and that's what I will push for. Thank you for coming.
I'd also say thank you for coming and the opportunity to share the school side of this. Like I said, we've been working with the library board and the city, and so if you ever have any questions, feel free to give me a call, send me an email. We're here to answer any of those questions also. And just add Justin, the school board negotiators, we should be getting together with the city this week or next, so to start working this out.
Okay. So could you try to run down the whole list for me? Who's all in that negotiating committee?
For the school district, Jeff Botts, Lance Hoy, and Brad Carson are the negotiating committee of the board.
Okay. And for the city?
The city is Councilman Justin Schroyer, Councilman Dan Delaney, and Evan Schiller from the library board.
Okay. Is there anyone else?
No, that's it.
Okay. So those are the people you need to contact if you want to have additional input into this process. Thank you all for your energy, your questions, your comments, and you mostly followed my ground rules. So pretty good for a full packed room on a very passionate issue. All right. I think that wraps up tonight. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. Thank you.